I am pleased to introduce Julie Bornstien.
Thank you very much, Bob, and thanks to all of you. It's such an important recognition to recommit ourselves to the cause of peace, because it is a very difficult world in which we live. We have unfortunately used our technology to improve the weapons of war when we need to rededicate to peace. So I'm pleased to be with all of you today. I come from an ancient tradition that prizes peace. In Jewish temples around the world, we say a prayer called Sim Shalom, grant peace to all of us as one. And in that ancient Hebrew prayer, peace includes the following concepts: goodness, kindness, compassion, and righteousness. It also tells us that we have a responsibility to bring peace among the peoples of the world. This is a tradition that we in the United States follow in many, many instances with our words. But what have we done with our deeds in the last 8 years? You know, President Eisenhower warned us about using our power for peace rather than war when he took leave of the American people and said goodbye 3 days before the inauguration of JFK. This election coming up this year, in just a bare 6.5 weeks, gives us a stark contrast in how we use the material progress, the riches, and the military strength of the United States, whether we use it for the betterment of the human race or whether we use it for military and violent means. There's no question that we live in a dangerous and violent world, but it's one where the virtues of compassion, kindness, respect for others, working together with our partners in the world probably brings us the right framework to deal with the violence and the threats to humanity that we all suffer. In our community, we too know that the best way to deal with others is with respect, kindness, and compassion. But if we truly want to change the direction of our country, it's not simply enough to pay lip service to our spiritual traditions or to our human traditions. We need also to change the people who carry out those traditions, because we cannot expect people who have set a course of action that disregards our values. You know, I don't know about the rest of you, I'm ready to stand up front and just shout. Is that all right? I'm here to suggest to you that on International Day of Peace, this is a day to dedicate ourselves to restoring the path of America and the traditions that have made us proud and that have made us stand as a beacon of hope to other people who wish to have democratic institutions that provide dignity and respect and equality to the peoples of the world. But to do that, we have to change our leadership, because the last 8 years shows us that our leaders are not dedicated to those principles. And that's true in Washington, it's true here at home. I hope, for example, to offer you a change in November. And that change is one that is difficult actually to enunciate to people, because in many ways they do not know what our current representative has done on our behalf in Washington. Many of us do not know, for example, that our current Congresswoman has voted with President Bush 92% of the time. Now, is that a record that carries out your values of dignity, kindness, compassion? Is that a record that tells you that we are headed in the right direction in terms of our standing in the world and our promotion of peace throughout the world? Most people say no. They do not believe that. And then we look at how this current administration has defined the goal of peace. They've tended to define it in terms of military action. You are a patriot if you support military action. You are not a patriot if you do not. You are a patriot if you support military expenditures, but you're not a patriot if you want expenditures on people who need your help. Let's get into that record a little more as well. Not only has this administration not authorized expenditure of funds to make sure our military troops are safe, our representative hasn't voted for them either. Mrs. Mack has voted against legislation that would appropriate, for example, monies to keep armored cars that will protect you from roadside bombs. She voted against expenditures to make sure our troops had the body armor that they needed to be safe in the field, carrying out the commands of their superiors. She has voted against veterans' benefits so that when veterans return from the war, she does not support the medical care and the mental health care that many veterans require when integrating back into society. How does that carry out the values of compassion or goodness or kindness that seem to be inherent in the concept of peace? If in fact our leaders in Washington, whether it be the occupant of the White House or whether it be our member of Congress who supports the occupant of the White House, if they truly want to be for peace, then they have to limit the use of war, and when limiting the use of war, they have to honor those who go to fight for us to bring peace as the ultimate outcome. And this representative has not done that. What about the other elements of that definition of peace, of goodness, of compassion? At no time in my memory has our country faced so many challenges as we do today. Most of us think about the different segments of our society and our community, and we do not see success or enthusiasm or anything we can be proud of in any part of it. And we have to ask ourselves, how did we get here? And how can we get out of this situation? After 9/11, the country was united, we were distraught, we were grieving, and we were hurt. And the President came to Congress and asked for broad authority to conduct the war without transparency, without accountability, and without a plan for success. And in the spirit of patriotism, in the spirit of support for the country, the United States Congress gave him that support. And most of us, I think, have come to the conclusion that we were misled and that that blank authority was inappropriate. And the lack of accountability has led us to all kinds of situations. We are now in a similar situation in the economic field. The President has gone to Congress and has asked for blank authority to be given to the Secretary of the Treasury, someone who is an appointed person, to deal with the current economic crisis, without accountability, without transparency, and without a clear plan of what they're going to do. And they have told the Congress, and they told us all this morning on the morning news shows, that if this authority is not granted by Friday of this week, the potential is the international economic system will collapse. And so we are told in the spirit of patriotism, and we had both Republican and Democratic leaders together telling us this morning, that they will move through Congress a piece of legislation that does not have details, it does not have a line of authority, to give this blanket authority to the Secretary of Treasury to deal with this economic crisis. Playing again on our desire to be unified and our desire to face a crisis together. So it is something that we have to guard against. For one thing, I might point out, after January 20th, there will be a different Secretary of the Treasury, no matter what. No matter what. Now, we don't necessarily know who that person is even going to be. It's time that we recognize that it makes a difference who serves in Congress. It makes a difference who serves in the White House as to what direction we take and as to whether our national values are carried out in our public policy. We have very serious problems, and we need very serious people to address them. That's people who are willing to put in the time, who are willing to do the work, who are willing to ask the hard questions, who are willing to face criticism if the rest of the world is going this way, but somebody needs to stand up and say, wait a minute, let's ask those questions. And I hope that I can offer you that change, certainly in being a congressional representative, a serious person devoted to this district who will ask those serious questions, keeping in mind, again, that the values that motivate us come from an ancient tradition that says to bring peace to the entire community, you need goodness, you need kindness, you need compassion, and you need to act in a righteous manner. Thank you all very much.